Hello, welcome to today's program, which is called Alter Egos. You might also refer to it as, I guess, writers with day jobs. We have an unbelievable panel with us today. I guess I'll start geographically. Immediately we have Daniyal Mueenuddin, who's the author of In Other Rooms, Other Wonders. And I'm going to refer to his bio so I don't screw anything else up. He's a graduate of the unbelievable school, Dartmouth College, and also Yale Law School. He's had stories in The New Yorker, Granta, Zoetrope, and many other places, including Best American Short Stories and the O. Henry Prize. As you know, he's a lawyer, but he actually now works as a farmer. Did I have that right? Mm-hmm. He is a farmer in Pakistan, in the South Punjab, where he raises, would you tell me, beets and something else?
Mangoes.
Mangoes, yeah, okay. Okay, and then we have Assaf Gavron, who has probably the more interesting day job. He happens to be the lead singer, do I have that right, of a pop band?
Yeah, it's not exactly a day job, but we'll talk about it.
He's the author of 4 novels, Ice, Moving, Almost Dead, and Hydromania. A collection of short stories, which I know you're all going to run out and get because it's called Sex in the Cemetery. And a review of Jerusalem falafel joints called Eating Standing Up. And then last but not least, we have, I hope I get this right, Rabih Alameddine, who's the author of a number of books. He was born in Amman, Jordan, to Lebanese parents. He grew up in Kuwait and Lebanon. He has an engineering degree from UCLA and an MBA, I Feel His Pain, from the University of Chicago. He's the author of a number of novels, Kool-Aids, I the Divine, a short story collection called The Perv, and probably best known for The Hakawati. He's had stories all over the place. He's an accomplished painter who's had shows in the United States, Europe, and the Middle East, and he's also a Guggenheim Fellow. So without further ado, let's welcome our panelists.
Thank you. Hello? Yeah. So I've had sort of 2 different careers, and I'll talk briefly about each of them. First, I'll talk about having been a lawyer. I, at some point in my 30s, decided that I needed a legitimate reason to leave Pakistan, where it wouldn't seem as if I was running away with my tail between my legs, and also realized that my poetry, which is what I was writing at the time, was probably not going to set the world on fire, and that I needed to think about a backup plan. And so I went off to law school, and after that then practiced for 3 years in New York in one of these big, ugly law firms. Although I hated my time as a lawyer, there were, I think, 2 things that I learned that were very useful there. One is that I think lawyers, and especially lawyers in these big New York law firms, working deals and I did both litigation and commercial stuff. You really start to get an understanding of how the levers of power are manipulated. I mean, because for your clients, or you are effectively causing these levers to be moved. I mean, that's what lawyers do, and that informs my writing. I mean, it just gives you an understanding of an aspect of the world that I think is sort of, money is so important, and it shows you how money works, and I think that's been valuable in my writing. The other thing, which is just a practical thing, as lawyers have to be very, very precise with their language. And because a misplaced comma or a misused word or a mischaracterization may cost somebody a lot of money. And so you learn to really be careful about each word in your document. And there's this intense focus. I mean, we would be up at 3 in the morning rereading the deal document for the 18th time just to make sure that there wasn't a misplaced comma. And that obviously helps. It helps when you're writing fiction. The third thing is that lawyers have to write on command often very long documents. So you'll be sitting there and the partner will come to you and say, I need 40 pages on the following subject by Monday. It's now Friday night. And you just pound it out. You can't say no. And so that obviously is also good. It just there's no such thing as writer's block for lawyers. so that's good. So those are sort of lawyer things. And then the other thing is that I've been a farmer in Pakistan. And I've been a farmer since I was I knew this farm since I was a kid, but after college, went back there as sort of a runny-nosed college student with a newly minted BA in sort of modernist fiction, which is completely without value, and decided to start running this farm, which belonged to my family, and learned how to do it, and did it, and I've lived there most of my life, and that was very valuable training for two reasons. One, because it gave me the subject for a lot of my stories. I mean, I was constantly had my ears open, and I think even from the beginning when I was writing poetry and not writing fiction, I had a sense that someday these fascinating stories that I was hearing would someday make their way into a book, and they have. The other thing is that there in Pakistan, I mean, when I say I'm a farmer, I don't drive a tractor. What I basically do is manage a farm, and therefore I'm meeting and engaging very intimately with all sorts of people. I mean, for example, to give a random example, there's this man who comes to buy our trees, because we have trees planted in our orchard at the edges, and occasionally we need to get rid of them. So this guy will come and he'll buy 30 trees, and so it's a very small deal. But the guy is a complete character, and he comes in and then he tells me how I'm stealing from him, and his children are starving because of me, and we have this whole long, elaborate dance that we go through, which I enjoy tremendously, with him sort of weeping and gnashing his teeth and flagellating himself and so on. So this is, and you because there's sort of a theatrical aspect to it, to all business dealings, but also it's a really intimate thing because you really care about the outcome, and so does the other guy, and so therefore you have these very intense meetings, and I think that has given me insight into the character of lots of different types of people, and I think that feeds into my work. How many minutes would that have been? Probably more than 5. So I'll leave it
but do you want to read now?
I could, yeah. All right, I will. So I'll quickly read. I'll read part of this. So this is from an unpublished story, in which the main character is basically very similar to me. And this guy's just showed up, and this is taken directly from an actual event. I showed up at my farm, and the farm had basically been taken over by these very, wily and powerful managers who had basically told my father to buzz off, because my father was living in Lahore, 9 hours away, and was very old and was very sick. So they kept sending less and less money and kept taking control of this farm, and had actually managed to put some of the land into their own names by, bribing and colluding with the local land officials. So the first thing I did is I showed up and said, and what do I own? And these guys sort of mumbled and grumbled. And so I said, oh, great. Well, let's go to the local government official who writes these things down, keeps the records, and he can tell us what I own. And they looked at me with a sharp eye and said, well, if you insist. And so this describes the visit to this office, which obviously didn't go very well. The me character is called Azmat Gurmani. The manager, who's based upon what the manager is called Salim, and the Tehsildar is the land revenue official, and Dunyapur is the farm to which I returned, the name of it in the story. The Tehsildar, the second most important revenue official in Kanpur after the assistant commissioner, had his offices in a crumbling British-era building near the old city, made of bricks, with deep verandas and archways. Onto this had been appended strangely incongruous additions, including a tin-roofed portico painted with glossy blue and white stripes, sheltering the Tehsildar's official jeep. Azmat drove in under an old pipal tree, stopped the car, and hopped out without turning off the engine, leaving the driver to park. Salim fell in line behind him, and they walked up to the door, guarded by a peon wearing a dirty white uniform, somewhat like a sailor suit, with brass buttons. Azmat had never before been to this office. Gurmani, he announced to the peon, please tell the Tehsildar Sahib. Salim leaned forward and whispered in Azmat's ear, go on in. In the room, 6 or 7 men were sitting on a line of chairs, arrayed in front of a large desk. Behind the desk sat the Tehsildar, a short Punjabi with very thick black hair parted at the side, wearing elaborate golden-framed glasses with the interlocking Chanel monogram on each side. His starched white shalwar were of satiny cotton, and his gold cufflinks were matched for brilliance only by his gold pen, which lay on his desk in front of him, pinning down some papers. By contrast, the chairs were rickety and of cheap wood, the floors bare concrete and slippery with dust, and worst of all, a strong smell of urine escaped from a little toilet that had been built by walling off a corner of the room, the Tehsildar presumably being unwilling to enter the even more foul common latrines. The Tehsildar looked up owlishly, regarded Azmat, and continued speaking to one of the men arrayed in front of him. So he told that son of a bitch that judge or no judge, they were confiscating those videotapes. Azmat took one of the seats pushed against the wall, very aware that the other visitors were of a crude social class, hangers-on to government officials, penny lawyers, and various kinds of fixers. Already he regretted having come. So that is basically, that's drawn very precisely from life, and it goes on, and in the end, of course, he doesn't achieve his purpose. It does not get the land papers. So I'll turn it over to you.
To me or to you?
To you, to you.
Okay, so I was a writer, and I didn't make enough money to make a living, so I formed this obscure indie pop band and made millions. And this is what funded my career. No, actually, the pop band is it's the exact opposite of a day job, and it's an interesting pop band because it's very carefully planned. We have a set of rules, and we follow those rules really strictly. And those rules are basically made in order to serve our main occupation, which there are 3 of us. I am a writer. Another one is a dancer, choreographer, and the third one is actually a musician, but he has a proper music career. And those rules, for example, one of the rules is that we release an album every 6 years. And we started in '89, the first one, '95, 2001, 2007. The next one is 2013, and we're actually a little bit stressed about it coming. And we were talking recently, and we said it's really the first time that we feel that 6 years is not enough. So maybe we need to amend those rules. And there are other things, like we have the same cover every time, only with a different color on the background, and we have one cover song of a patriotic Israeli song. So we have all these little pockets that we just need to fill each project into, and this is what really lets us deal seriously with our main thing. But also, I mean, I also, of course, need money, and I did work for 4 years. I did different things, and also before I'll go into that job, I'll just say that probably, even if I will make enough money to live off books, I think I will always need other things to occupy myself with, to occupy my mind, I think, to filter out the constant dealing. And I know that Rabih is going to say the opposite, because you say it, when he's in a project, he's there. But I need to filter it out. And whether it's a different creative thing, like the music, or even a job. And I worked for 4 years for a high-tech company in Israel, not as a programmer, as it's said here in some of the literature, but as a content person, creative person. And I actually loved the job. I loved having, for once in my life, a normal job, to go to an office, go in the morning, come back in the evening. And I think that the other thing, besides of a normal income, that was a very refreshing change for me at the time, is that I mean, there are a couple of paradoxes in being a writer. One is that in most cases you don't earn enough money. But the other is that if you're sitting in a room all day, what are you going to write about? Well, how are you going to know life? And one of the things about knowing life is knowing work and knowing jobs. It's one of the major things. And I once met Carol Shields, the writer who passed away since, and I asked her for one tip as a young writer, and she said, write about work. And since then I've been following this tip, and I think that my time, for example, in this high-tech company gave me a lot. I mean, if some of you read Almost Dead, the book I talked about yesterday, there is the character there who works in a similar job, but it's of course more than that, more than inspiring you to write about the specific thing you do, but it shows you much more about life, which I think writers desperately need to go out and experience life in order to write about life. So that's me.
Me. I'm not sure why I'm here on this panel. The first thing that I'd like to say is that in my experience, and I have many writers as friends, and I know quite a few, that I have yet to meet one writer who has anything in common with another writer, and when it comes to how they write and what they need to write. We all write completely differently. We all need different patterns. So he needs a job would kill me. Now, I'm supposed to be a painter. If I can give one advice, is when you write your first bio, really pay attention to it, because it's going to stay with you for your entire career. It's like, even say if it says you've been married for 10 years, you'll be married for 10 years for 60 years. So in the beginning, I was a painter. I actually sort of stopped painting when I began to write. My last exhibit was in Norway in '97. At the time, I was a painter that had quite a few galleries around, Europe, the US, and the Middle East. I really haven't painted since. And there's many reasons for it. I'm an obsessive person, which is, I have a certificate from my psychiatrist that says that. Yes. I tell the story usually that I used to grow orchids, and then I started growing bonsais, and when I started growing bonsais, the orchids died. I started painting, the bonsais died. I started writing, and I don't paint anymore. Because for me, it's about what how I obsessed. I can't imagine sort of, I dabble now in paint. You could say I'm a dilettante. I do nice things, but it's not the same. When I was painting, I would go to sleep thinking about the painting. I would wake up thinking about the painting. I'd be sitting with a person and I'd be thinking about the painting. I now do it with my books, which is why I can't sustain any long-term relationships, because I'll be talking to somebody and think, oh, I could use that in my book. I could use that in my book. But it's really funny because that's when I go back to different writers. I was saying this, that it's all about, for me, what you do is your obsession. It's what wakes you up in the morning, what you go to sleep with at night. And I was saying this in front of a friend of mine, Alexander Hemman, and I said, I'm a writer because I go to bed at night thinking about writing, and I dream about writing. And he looks at me and goes, then I must be a soccer player. So it comes down to, it's different for everybody. It's funny that we can sit up here and tell all these stories about how and what it's like to be a writer or to write. But the truth is that we all come to it in our own way. And I have yet to meet a writer who basically has been inspired by anything that I've said to make them, write. It's about finding your own path. And that's me. But before we, the most important question I have for you is, what kind of mangoes? Because
we
that's
have
a big
many
deal.
varieties,
Yes.
many varieties. Daseri, Langra, Chonsa, Kala Chonsa, Sufed Chonsa, Desi.
Unless you've had Pakistani mangoes and maybe like the Alfonso from India, you haven't had mangoes.
This is true.
You haven't had mangoes.
Actually, mangoes are like wine. I mean, they have, the soil of the individual place, and the aficionados will debate which sort of orchard has the best mangoes and so on. So it's an obsessive thing also.
I obsess about mangoes as well.
That's why
But
it
not
doesn't
while
write
I'm
anymore.
writing.
I like mangoes, but I wanted to ask you, what is your daily schedule? How does it work? When do you write, and when do you manage the farm? And
I'm one of those people.
and what exactly do you do when you manage the farm?
I'm one of those, as you say, everybody's different, right? But my sort of when I started writing, I thought the ideal thing is some of the Somerset Maugham thing of sort of, 300 words on the French Riviera every day. So I aim to do 350 words every day, and I do it in the morning. I meet people first, and meet people because obviously being on a farm, I get up very early. Then at about 7 o'clock, 7:30, a bunch of people show up, meet them, talk about things, and then I write my 350 words, which takes till lunchtime, till about 1:32, and then I just go and walk. Either I look at books, which is very boring, and I try not to do, but that's the more useful thing I do is study. We have a very elaborate bookkeeping system, so I try to sign. I generally try to sign all the vouchers, the cash vouchers, which means that I'm aware of every expenditure that's been made. Or I go and walk on the land, which is what I prefer to do, in which case I'm pretty much useless because I know so much less about farming than the guys who are actually doing the farming.
So you just overlook the...
I go and walk around and look, and I mean, I can tell if things are dying and things. I've been doing it long enough now, so I have a fairly good sense of it. But these guys know much more about it than I do because they sit there and do it every day, all day.
What about you?
Well, it's interesting that, it sounds very tough to start with on the farm, then to move to the writing, and then to go back. Because for me, I write well in the morning. I wake up and start writing. And I can get into it pretty quickly. And when I worked in this high-tech company, I wrote from 6 to 8 every morning, and then I, shower, breakfast, and go to work. And, I probably got, I don't know if more, but not less done than in times in my life that I could write full time, because there were. I was, for example, on a scholarship in Berlin for 1 year last year, which was meant to give me, paid for me to be able to write, but I don't think that I wrote more than I did Because when it's condensed to this really small amount of hours a day, then you have to run ahead and get things done.
This is the odd thing about writing, is that it really is, I mean, there are exceptions obviously, but for most writers that I've talked to, you know, like 3 or 4 hours is the maximum you can do every day. So the question is, this is why they all drink so much. And because what the hell else do you do for the rest of the day? You know, and then that gin bottle is sort of glows as you think about, you know, what else you might do. So that's why it's probably very useful to have a job, just to keep you away from the gin bottle, if nothing else.
And when do you write? What?
Oh, I wish I knew. I used to do this thing where doing nothing but writing doesn't make you write more. It's been my experience, and I've talked to enough people who have full-time jobs, and they write more than I do. But I know myself that what I need is a lot of time of doing nothing and worrying about the fact that I'm doing nothing for me to sit down and actually play Sudoku. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I think I should be writing, and I don't. And then, you know, I decide, okay, maybe I could, you know, go for a jog, and I do. And then I come back, and it's time to eat something, and then it's time for the afternoon nap, and then I wake up, and, you know, I have to read all the soccer scores, and, you know, which team traded which player, and, you know, is Arsenal, they haven't won a cup in 6 years. I mean, this is a disaster. And so it goes on, and then it's time for dinner, and I sit, and I have my own, and all by myself, you know, I eat dinner, and then, oh my God, I'm not writing, but maybe, you know, if I play the game of Sudoku, I'll be able to do it. Usually by 10:30 at night, I feel so guilty that, you know, I need to sit down, and I'm usually like, so I sit down, I write one sentence, and usually it sucks so bad that I go to sleep and, you know, worry about it. And sometimes, you know, I write a sentence, and it's, you know, good, and then all of a sudden I'm lost till about 2, 3 in the morning, and I wake up, and it's like, oh my God. And then, you know, I go to sleep, and I wake up, and I look at it, and it's either really, really sucks, and I have to throw it out, or it's not bad. But that changes. Again, like these days, I'm writing in the morning. I can't figure it out. And it's not, you know, this mystical thing. It's different people have different ways of working. And for me, I have to tire my mind out to take all the, like my mind has to go through all the possibilities of, like, you know, I have to do this and have to psych myself up so that it gets so tired that I could actually, you know, physically sit down and not think about anything else.
But wouldn't a job do this business?
I did. I had a job
job.
once. I had a job once. I had a job once. I think that was 1988. And I used to go to work and at 9 and then come back at 5, and I'd be so exhausted that I discovered why people watch television. Because that's all I could do. So again, I know it's like there's this friend of mine, Chris Adrian. He went to Iowa to the writers program. He went to medical school. He became a pediatric oncologist. He works with children's cancer. While he had written 3 books, he also went to Harvard and got a master's degree in divinity. So he was living in San Francisco. His boyfriend was in Boston. He was traveling back and forth, working with cancer patients, getting his degree in, and writing books. Chris and I have nothing in common. You know, we're like, you know, we get along. He's a great writer. I wish I could do what he does. I've never been able to. It's just not me.
Should we?
Should we
Past
open it
6, so
Okay, let's
we'll take
open it up.
questions if there are any.
And the way we did it this last session was that whoever has the microphone sort of selects the person. It's a sort of a roulette. But that way
Who has the
the
microphone?
person and the microphone intersect. So who has, there's the microphone.
Sarah. There's someone here.
Hi. So as an Iranian woman, I found that there was a huge amount of pressure for me to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, and I can't help but to observe that you guys have a number of degrees and things that are not related to writing, and I wonder to what extent your family's pressured you to do other things.
Well, in my case, the fact that I'm a lawyer and my brother is a doctor will pretty much tell you the extent to which we were under control.
With me, it wasn't overt. In Lebanon, there's no two ways. There's two professions. You're either a doctor or an engineer. Lawyers are, those who weren't very good at math. Seriously, it's just one of those things. It never occurred to me. Luckily for me, I graduated early. I finished my master's when I was about 23, and that was it for my, that's what I did for my parents. I bartended after. Oh, God, yes. Oh, yeah.
No, I was joking. Actually, I didn't.
Oh, no, I did it for my parents because I hated engineering. And, once I finished, it was like, it was great for me. I learned a lot. But I never really worked. Then I got an MBA, and it's like, please. I can't balance a checkbook.
You lived a charmed life, I think everybody would
I
agree.
absolutely lived a charmed life. I'm blessed. I am blessed.
How about you?
Well, the Jewish way, at least the way I experience is, you can do whatever you want. But don't forget that your brother has a degree, and your sister has a degree, and of course all your friends and all your friends' brothers and everyone. So it was kind of the natural thing, but I really should say that I didn't really have family pressure. I really could go on and pursue whatever I wanted. Maybe I wish I would have more family pressure, but no, I did have a degree, and it was, I did go and study for a degree, and it was, in a way, something that I was expected to do, so I would say that, but apart from that.
But it's also important that even as a youngster, when I was in engineering school, the free electives that I took were Shakespeare. I'd take classes that completely interested me, not easy classes per se.
But, joking aside, maybe I'm just extrapolating from my own experience, but most of the writers, certainly in my case, and a lot of the writers I talk to, either there's been a parent or there's been somebody who pushed writing, pushed reading, and in many cases, a parent or somebody who had not succeeded as a writer, and who.
Do you know my family? It is true in my case. Although
in my case too.
I didn't think it was that common, but it is my case. So maybe you're right.
No, I've talked to a lot of people for whom that's true. The parents, push their aspirations onto their children. That what I did, the mountain that I didn't climb, although I wish to. I hope that Johnny will.
I didn't. What I did learn from my mother is reading. She at the time read like a fool, and so I grew up thinking that Harold Robbins and Jacqueline Suzanne were the greatest writers of all time. But and this is important because you can read. It's like people say, no, you need to read this, or you need. It doesn't matter. As a child, I read everything and anything that came my way. So it doesn't matter to me what somebody reads as long as they read.
Yeah, the one thing that when you meet some person who's an aspiring writer, and you say, so what do you read? And they say, well, I don't really read much. I don't have time, something like that. You're like, that's just not going to happen. So that is definitely a commonality among writers. Usually, I think from a very early age, they sort of escaped into books.
Yeah, no, it's. When I was 9 or 10, actually a little younger. When I was about 8, I used to read this writer that's not very famous here. Her name was Enid Blyton.
Definitely.
And I used to read about 4 books a day, 5 books a day, just go through the whole thing.
She's not successful in America?
No. I mean, I don't know how many people of you know Enid Blyton.
See?
Okay, but they're all Iranian or
Exactly.
The
Yeah, no.
secret seven.
She is the.
She is popular in Israel.
Oh
too.
my God.
And England, of course.
And England and India and Pakistan.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know a single Indian or Pakistani writer that you don't just go, Enid Blyton. Oh.
Let's move to the next question.
I just wondered along the same line of questioning, how about women and your sisters, and how is it today in your countries? For the girls.
What does that mean? We didn't get that quite. What is the question exactly?
Just the pressure from families and for your sisters and women.
Pressure upon our sisters to be writers?
Yes, or just opportunities in general. You know, like
okay,
you're
yeah.
talking about
So-
your
so-
jobs,
yeah,
being a doctor
I see.
and a
So I guess the question would be, you were pressured in some ways to become, to take have these other jobs. Were the women in your family similarly pressured? Is that fair? Yeah.
and just substitute women for the question before.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a sister. I never felt any different.
Your
Kind
mom
of.
was an equal opportunity nagger.
Yeah, it's not a big issue really. I don't know how it is in Pakistan.
I don't have a sister, but I think in Pakistan the women are definitely not encouraged in the same way. Women are encouraged to get married sooner
In
the better,
Lebanon,
and the
it would
richer the better.
depend. In my family, I have one sister who got married and didn't do anything for the longest time until now, and I have another sister who is a philosophy professor, and she was encouraged. The elder sister wasn't good in school. My youngest sister was absolutely brilliant. So she started teaching before it's like she finished the baccalaureate, and because of the war, started teaching the class that she just graduated from that next year, and now she basically runs the entire department. But it depends on the family,
Right.
It's like if you're asking what the situation is for women in the Middle East, I can't tell you. But if you're asking about my family, she probably has more pressure, except that she dealt with it a lot better than I did. She told my parents to just fuck off.
The mic is off. Yeah.
Still.
Hello? Oh, then the guy is coming.
I'm really interested in, you talk about process of writing, but the process of selecting what you write about. And if you have a story as to one of the more interesting selections you made, how do you choose what to write about versus how you write?
Me? The same answer. It's what obsesses me. The rule of thumb for me is it has to be something that I can't sort of not write about. And it has to be something that I know will interest me for a long time because it's going to take a long time. I don't know how I choose it, and every single one of my books is different. I choose things that interest me, so subject matters that interest me. I rarely consider and again, it's different for every writer. I rarely consider what the reception will be or how until I'm almost done with the book, and then I have a nervous breakdown. But it's what obsesses my thinking. I have to. Something keeps coming up. Like the last book that I started, it was a completely different subject. I wanted to write about the Gulf War and all that, and all of a sudden it's now about a single lonely woman in Lebanon. Why? I have no idea. It just moved from that to distilling what is of interest.
It's like going on a road trip with somebody. You know you're going to hate them by the end of it. but at least at the beginning there has to be good chemistry. So when you choose your subject, I think you have to be pretty bloody careful that you really like it. And that's so that when I'm casting around, I'm like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and then yes, she's the one. But little do I know that she has bad habits.
As long as she doesn't have a machine gun, you're fine.
Recently I really want to write Nordic noir because, everyone is just crazy about it. And actually, I loved it. I love Stig Larsson, and now I'm reading the Norwegian guy. But I'm from the Middle East. So how am I going to describe the long nights, the dark nights, the snow? So I'm trying to figure that out. Maybe we should invent Middle Eastern noir. That would be the next craze. But yeah, I really like this metaphor of the buddy, the journey buddy.
Exactly.
Because you do grow to feel a bit sick
and then, like the road trip, after it's all over, 2 years later, you're like, God,
we
remember
had
the
such
good
an
times
amazing
we
time.
had?
Yeah. It's true, but it's for me. I sometimes I get these ideas planted in my head, and it's like survival of the fittest. It's like those who stay there and start growing, and you see something. Oh, that's related. That could be this. Or you read something, and then after. It takes a long time. It could be 2 years or whatever. And of course, it depends if you just finish something and then you go, oh, okay, that's the one, that's there. And for me, it has to sit in my head for a long while and to develop. Yeah. And then I'm ready to start working on it.
We heard a little writing about lawyering, but I wondered if the other two of you had put your music or your painting directly into your writing and what that was like.
Well, in a very indirect way, the working title of the novel I'm working on now was a title of a song of our band. Which is, it's a good title, hold on. Outpost of the Grief-Stricken. And it's a song, it's a very funny song, and it's nothing to do with the book. But, and I write about an outpost, about an illegal settlement in the West Bank. And actually, recently I sent out to a few friends a first draft, and everyone was saying, "What the hell is this title? It has nothing to do with," because actually there's no one grief-stricken in that outpost. So there could be this kind of influence, but if I think about it, no. I think that's the thing. The thing is that it's something else. That it's something that I forget about the writing, and I do something else. And it's different because I work with people where when I'm writing I don't. And it's a different kind of work, and it's all about music. Yes, there are texts, and I do write the texts, but it's completely different. So I would say the short answer would be no.
My first two novels were, the characters were painters, not the last one and not this one. But I'm one of those that believes that everything gets into your work. I mean, everything. It's, from I did this as a 3-year-old to watching somebody cross the street, everything informs my work.
That's why playing Sudoku is just like writing, but it's gathering material.
Yeah. Just everything. So, of course, painting will come into it. So will math. So will, engineering. So will, how my mother spoke in the morning, what my dad does, you know, in the afternoons, what my sister watches on television, Aliens 3, you name it. It all comes into the book.
I think that's it.
Are there any other questions? No. Yes. Assaf, I was wondering, what is the name of your band and what do you do in it?
It's called, it's the name of this, you would know as a farmer, the cow disease, foot and mouth, mouth and hoof. I think in America it's called hoof, mouth and hoof.
And
No,
why did you name your band after a disease?
Foot and mouth, sorry?
Why did you name your band after a disease?
Why not?
Well, actually in Hebrew, the mouth comes first. It's called hapeh v'atlafayim. And the disease and the band. And the reason is that we are the mouth, which is me, and the hoof or foot, the players, which are the other guys. And in the 80s, there was a big, in kibbutzim in Israel, there was an outbreak of foot and mouth. So everyone was like talking about it everywhere. And we discovered also something very interesting, that the years when we released our albums, which so far, as I said, 89, 95, 2001, 2007, there is a global outbreak of this disease. And we have the press, the paper clippings to prove it.
So there are a lot of veterinarians looking for you.
Yeah, and what I do, I sing. I sing, and I don't really know how to play, but my two friends are brilliant players. And I write most of the lyrics.
Okay, will you just please sing a little bit?
No. But no, you should go to YouTube. There's several clips. Mouth and Foot.
Do you have any albums?
Yeah, we have 4.
You have 4?
Yeah. We have a 5th coming out 2013. And the 6th in 2020. And I can go on. No, we said we'll do it until we're 80 years old.
Great.
Any more questions?
I think that's it.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Daniyal, Assaf, and Rabih. They will be signing in the lobby. Books are available at our bookstore. Thanks, everyone. Join us tomorrow. We have our first event at 1 o'clock called How Do You Do It?